Darby must go now, sir. We is already making Christmas dinner in the kitchens, said Darby. And he hurried out of the dormitory, waving goodbye to Ron and the others as he passed. Harry's other presents were much more satisfactory than Dobby's old socks, with the obvious exception of the Dursleys, which consisted of a single tissue, an all-time low. Harry supposed they too were remembering the tongue toffee. Hermione had given Harry a book called Quidditch Teams of Britain and Ireland. Ron, a bulging bag of dung bombs. Sirius, a handy pen knife with attachments to unlock any lock and undo any knot. And Hagrid, a vast box of sweets, including all Harry's favorites. Bertie Bott's every flavored beans, chocolate frogs, Drubel's best blowing gum, and fizzing Whizbees. There was also, of course, Mrs. Weasley's usual package, including a new sweater, green, with a picture of a dragon on it. Harry supposed Charlie had told her all about the horntail. And a large quantity of homemade mince pies. Harry and Ron met with Hermione in the common room, and they went down to breakfast together. They spent most of their morning in Gryffindor Tower, where everyone was enjoying their presents. Then returned to the Great Hall for a magnificent lunch, which included at least 100 turkeys and Christmas puddings and large piles of Cribbage's Wizarding crackers. And I bet they are not crackers as in cheese and crackers, because this is a British book, and it is the Christmas cracker thing when you pull it and it cracks. I don't know if you girls remember those, but they called those crackers. They went out onto the grounds in the afternoon. The snow was untouched, except for the deep channels made by the Durmstrang and Beauxbatons students on their way up to the castle. Hermione chose to watch Harry and the Weasleys snowball fight, rather than join in, and at 5 o'clock said she was going back upstairs to get ready for the ball. "What, you need 3 hours?" said Ron, looking at her incredulously, and paying for his lapse in concentration when a large snowball thrown by George hit him hard on the side of the head. "Who you going with?" he yelled after Hermione, but she just waved and disappeared up the stone steps into the castle. There was no Christmas tea today, as the ball included a feast. So at 7 o'clock, when it had become hard to aim properly, the others abandoned their snowball fight and trooped back to the common room. The fat lady was sitting in her frame with her friend Violet from upstairs. I don't know why I said upstairs. Violet from downstairs. Both of them extremely tipsy. Empty boxes of chocolate liqueurs littering the bottom of her picture. "Larry fights, that's the one, yeah," she giggled when they gave the password, and she swung forward to let them in. Harry, Ron, Seamus, Dean, and Neville changed into their dress robes up in their dormitory, all of them looking very self-conscious, but none as much as Ron, who surveyed himself in the long mirror in the corner with an appalled look on his face. There was just no getting around the fact that his robes looked more like a dress than anything else. In a desperate attempt to make them look more manly, He used a severing charm on the ruff and cuffs. It worked fairly well. At least he was now lace-free. Although he hadn't done a very neat job, and the edges still looked depressingly frayed as the boys set off downstairs. I still can't work out how you two got the best-looking girls in the year, muttered Dean. Animal magnetism, said Ron, pulling stray threads out of his cuffs. The common room looked strange, full of people wearing different colors instead of the usual mass of black. Pavarti was waiting for Harry at the foot of the stairs. She looked very pretty indeed, in robes of shocking pink, with her long, dark plait braided with gold. I guess that's her braided ponytail. And gold bracelets glimmering at her wrists. Harry was relieved to see that she wasn't giggling. You, look nice, he said, awkwardly. Thanks, she said. Padma's going to meet you in the entrance hall, she added to Ron. Right, said Ron, looking around. Where's Hermione? Pavarti shrugged. Shall we go down then, Harry? Okay, said Harry, wishing he could just stay in the common room. Fred winked at Harry as he passed him on the way out of the portrait hole. The entrance hall was packed with students, too, all milling around, waiting for 8 o'clock when the doors to the great hall would be thrown open. Those people who were meeting partners from different houses were edging through the crowd, trying to find one another. Pavarti found her sister, Padma, and led her over to Harry and Ron. Hi, said Padma, who was looking just as pretty as Pavarti in robes of bright turquoise. She didn't look too enthusiastic about having Ron as a partner, though. Her dark eyes lingered on the frayed neck and sleeves of his dress robes as she looked him up and down. Hi, said Ron, not looking at her but staring around at the crowd. Oh no. He bent his knees slightly to hide behind Harry because Fleur Delacour was passing. Looking stunning in her robes of silver-gray satin, and accompanied by the Ravenclaw Quidditch captain, Roger Davies. When they had disappeared, Ron stood straight again and stared over the heads of the crowd. Where is Hermione? He said again. A group of Slytherins came up the steps from their dungeon common room. Malfoy was in front. He was wearing dress robes of black velvet with a high collar, which in Harry's opinion made him look like a vicar. Pansy Parkinson, in very frilly robes of pale pink, was clutching Malfoy's arm. Crabbe and Goyle were both wearing green. They resembled moss-colored boulders, and neither of them, Harry was pleased to see, had managed to find a partner. The oak front doors opened and everyone turned to look as the Durmstrang students entered with Professor Karkaroff. Krum was at the front of the party, accompanied by a pretty girl in blue robes Harry didn't know. Over their heads he saw that an area of lawn right in front of the castle had been transformed into a sort of grotto full of fairy lights, meaning hundreds of actual living fairies were sitting in the rose bushes that had been conjured there and fluttering over the statues of what seemed to be Father Christmas and his reindeer. Then Professor McGonagall's voice called, "Champions, over here, please." Pavarti readjusted her bangles, beaming. She and Harry said, "See you in a minute," to Ron and Padma and walked forward. The chattering crowd parted to let them through. Professor McGonagall, who was wearing dress robes of red tartan, and had arranged a rather ugly wreath of thistles around the brim of her hat, told them to wait on one side of the doors while everyone else went inside. They were to enter the great hall in procession when the rest of the students had sat down. Fleur Delacour and Roger Davies stationed themselves nearest the doors. Davies looked so stunned by his good fortune in having Fleur for a partner that he could hardly take his eyes off her. Cedric and Cho were close to Harry, too. He looked away from them so he wouldn't have to talk to them. His eyes fell instead on the girl next to Krum. His jaw dropped. It was Hermione.